There is a danger in holding knowledge that is meant to keep a mind in chains, to shape it, to control it. A man who carries the knowledge to rewrite the story of yesterday has the power to reshape the story of today. He becomes a danger to those who rule from the shadows. For this is the wisdom once reserved for initiates alone. But as one wise elder has said, the time has come for the world to know. They move in the unseen spaces, what I call the gray lands of our being. The part of our journey we are taught to ignore. We are told there are beings who feed on energy, the very energy created when our minds vibrate with a certain frequency. These beings, we are told, are harvesting us. An ancient line of beings, from beyond the stars, has held this world in its grip for ages, placing its own blood into seats of power, even to this day. For centuries, a single story has been told to us, a story of our beginning, our gods, our world. But far from the written pages, in the deep heart of the ancient lands, there are whispers that were never etched in stone. They were passed from heart to heart, in secret, from one generation to the other. These whispers speak of beings who descended from the sky. They speak of those who altered the river of human consciousness, and of guardians who held a truth the world was not yet ready to hear. One such guardian dared to break the silence. An elder who claimed his own eyes had seen the forces that steer our world from behind the veil. This is his wisdom. And what you are about to hear may forever change the way you see the ground beneath your feet. Who was this keeper of secrets? He was born in the early part of the last century, in a southern village on a vast continent. His name meant, the one who awakens. But his path cannot be charted like that of other men. He was not a man of letters or science in the way the modern world understands them. He was something far older, something more potent and more feared. He was a keeper of the earth's memory, a shaman, a guardian of the continent's most ancient songs. In those lands for countless ages, wisdom was not held in books. It flowed through the voices of elders, healers, and sages. It was sacred, a protected spring offered only to those with a thirst for truth. From his youth, this man was brought to that spring to drink. His grandfather, a healer himself, opened for him the mysteries of the body, the soul, and the stars. He learned of rituals of signs, of the language of plants and spirits, and he learned of the gods who came from the sky, long before the religions of today claimed the heavens. And then, many years later, with a voice clear and steady, he chose to break the vow of silence and share with the world what he had seen. He spoke of the sky visitors, the ones who remade the human being. Of all the ancient knowledge passed to him, one story burned brighter than any other. It was a story as unsettling as it was familiar, echoing the hushed tales of so many cultures across the globe. It spoke of the Chitori, the beings of cold purpose, who descended from the heavens in vessels of fire and thunder. According to the lineage that taught him, before they arrived, humanity was a different stream of life. We were not yet split into man and woman. Each was a whole unto themselves, complete in body, mind, and energy. We did not use words. We spoke directly, mind to mind, with images, with feeling, with pure knowing. There was harmony because there was no separation. We lived as one with the earth, as one with the great sky. But when the Chitori came, the river was split. They sundered the human form into two sexes. They divided us, and with that division, they planted the seeds of need, of longing, of dependence. Duality was born. They also gave us spoken language, and while this seems a gift, the elder described it as a masterful tool of control. By forcing us to use words instead of pure thought, the direct connection between souls was fractured. Misunderstanding, falsehood, and confusion began to cloud the water. Conflict took root, and most disturbingly, they put us to work. This ancient tradition holds that humans were forced to dig in the earth for the shining stones these gods desired. A detail that echoes other old tales, like those of the Anunnaki, who some say shaped us to be their servants. This story also rings like a distant bell with the old legend of a great tower, where a united people speaking one tongue were punished by having their language shattered, sowing chaos. But what if it was not a punishment, but a deliberate act of manipulation from an outside force? For this elder, the Chitori were not myths. They were real, with a cold technology and a single purpose: to chain the human spirit. They taught us obedience, the act of kneeling, the acceptance of outer authority. They created religions, kings, and symbols of power, structures of hierarchy. All of this to sever our connection to our true, sovereign nature. Since then, the elder warned, we have lived under a spell, a deep slumber, keeping us divided, confused, and blind to our own power. But there was another layer, even more profound. He shared that in a vision, or perhaps a journey, he saw how these beings feed. They feed on the human mind, perhaps not literally, but energetically. They are nourished by our strong emotions, by fear, by suffering, by the chaos of our hearts. Here other whispers from the past arise, ancient teachings about entities that seek to keep souls tethered to the dense world of matter, or the spiritual understanding that our emotional energy can be harvested like a farmer harvests a crop. But most unsettling of all, the elder said, is that they never left. They continue their work from planes unseen, hidden within our power structures, our governments, our institutions, our complex engines of mental and emotional control. We will return to this stream of thought. Consider the echoes from other lands, the wisdom of the Dogon. The story this elder told is not an island. Travel thousands of kilometers from his southern home to the arid lands of Mali, and you will find one of the most mysterious cultures on earth, the Dogon. For ages, they have guarded knowledge that seems to defy reason, yet resonates deeply with the elder's words. The Dogon hold ancient myths of beings who came from the star system of Sirius. The great puzzle is that long before our modern instruments could see the companion star, Sirius B, a white dwarf invisible to our eye, the Dogon already knew of it and described it perfectly. They say their teachers came from the water, depicting them as amphibious beings who descended in a spinning ark. Their purpose: to teach and to plant knowledge on earth. They taught not only of the stars, but of medicine, farming, and the spirit. How could a people, seemingly isolated, hold such precise astronomical knowledge without our technology? And why do their stories harmonize with those from other ancient peoples across the world? And with what the Zulu elder said of the Chitori, is it possible that different peoples, with no bridges between them, are all remembering fragments of the same forgotten sunrise? A global pattern they try to erase. We might dismiss what the elder from the south shared as a single, local myth, but when you begin to listen to the old stories from other great civilizations, a troubling pattern emerges. The story of a humanity that was visited, altered, and disconnected from its source. The Dogon, like the Zulu, speak of beings from the stars who brought knowledge but also new order. Across the ocean, the Hopi speak of the Kashinas, sky, beings who guided the first people but left warnings of destruction if humanity lost its spiritual way. In ancient Sumer, the gods they called Anunnaki were said to have fashioned humans in their likeness, not from love, but for labor, a race of servants. Even in the holy books of the West, if read with new eyes, you find traces. A God who punishes, who imposes his will, who separates his people and demands blind loyalty. There are those who now look at these threads from many lands and have woven them together to see a radical picture. That these beings never left. They are not relics of a distant past. They continue to act today from the shadows, maintaining control through the architecture of our society, our politics, our beliefs, our technology. And it is here that the elder's story ceases to be a legend. It begins to sound like a warning, a map to a puzzle far larger than we imagined, the hidden bloodlines and the new cages. According to this view, the beings once worshipped as gods never disappeared. They simply changed their masks. They became dynasties, royal lines, structures of power that have lasted for centuries. Many royal houses throughout history claimed a special purity of blood, a lineage that, for some, is not merely a symbol. They argue that many of these ruling elites descend from the very same sky, beings who once intervened in our world, and that through generations, They have kept their hold through secrecy and the careful shaping of society. How do they work today? Not with thunderbolts and celestial spears, but with planned conflicts, with economic storms, with waves of fear, and most of all, with constant division. When people are fractured, polarized, living in fear or hopelessness, they fall into a low state of vibration. Anger, sorrow, guilt, apathy. And from that place, they are far easier to guide. In the past, this was done through rigid religions and ideologies. Then came the great control instrument of the last century, the mass media. It established a single story, an official view of the world, and made fear an invisible form of government. But the most masterful tool came later, the web of social connection. With it, they no longer need to watch us. We willingly offer up our data, our emotions, our very thoughts. And worse, it has shattered our attention, polarized us into warring tribes, and kept us in a state of constant survival. Instead of unity and deep spiritual work, what fills the air is conflict, noise, distraction, and a profound loneliness. This is how the slumber is maintained. When we are not at peace within ourselves, when we are divided, exhausted, and disconnected from our essence, we are easily kept asleep and easily led. But all is not dark. If we know how to hold this knowledge, it can be the very key that unlocks the door. It can catapult us toward wholeness, toward true seeing, toward gnosis. The purpose of this wisdom is not to fall into despair, not to become trapped in theories that weigh us down. It is to understand that we are in a grand play, a hologram of information. And when we understand the nature of the stage we are on, we gain the power to walk off of it. Perhaps we came here for this very challenge. Perhaps we chose it. When this begins to ring true inside us, something shifts. The outside world loses its grip. We begin to remember who we truly are, and we begin to see how to free ourselves from the forces that drain our energy and keep us in fog. Only then do we start to truly live, and even glimpse the path to the next level of this great journey. The true rebellion is to become whole again. When we understand how these forces work, and how they have always worked, we see the pattern. It repeats generation after generation, wearing different masks, different colors, different flags. But the mechanism is always the same: divide, distract, confuse, and weaken. And by seeing this pattern clearly, we begin to take back our power. For if all their work is to pull us apart, to scatter our attention, to make us forget, then the most radical act is to do the opposite. It is to hold our attention strong and sovereign. In a world of division, we must choose unity. Not just unity with others, but first and foremost, unity within. Because what they seek to shatter is not only our bond with each other, but the bond with ourselves. To split our mind from our body, our soul from our awareness, our energy from our intention. But when we bring ourselves back together, when body, mind, and spirit align once more, something powerful happens. We return to what we once were: complete, conscious, free. And then we understand, the battle was never for our jobs or our money. The battle has always been for our soul. And that is where our true strength lies. Inside, in that sacred inner space that no algorithm can touch, no empire can conquer. Our essence, our direct connection to the source. Return to your center. Reclaim your energy. Faced with a system designed to scatter us, to drain us, and keep us running, the true revolution begins with simple, potent choices. One of the most important is to unplug, to turn off, even for a few moments, the machine that floods us with algorithms designed not to inform, but to fracture, distract, and pull us away from our core. Return to the natural. A conscious diet of living foods not only nourishes the body, but stills the mind and raises our inner vibration. For what we eat directly shapes how we think and feel, but not just what we eat with our mouth. Choose what you read, listen to, and watch. Choose where you place your focus. Choose what energies you invite into your space, and what thoughts you empower. For we are all creators. What we nourish within blossoms without. Breathe. So simple, yet we have forgotten. Breathe deeply with purpose. The breath, a practice refined for millennia by wise ones in the East, does not just bring us to the present moment, and quiet the storm of thought. It unblocks our life force, allowing prana, the energy that animates all of creation, to flow freely through us. Meditate, not as an escape, but as a homecoming. Meditate to see yourself clearly, to quiet the roar of the outer world and reconnect with who you are beneath the conditioning. In the silence, a clarity arises, not from thinking, but from a direct connection to your own divine spark. Walk, move the body, dance. The body is the temple for our spirit. When we let it grow still, our energy stagnates with it. Conscious movement awakens and centers us. And though we hear of these practices again and again, food, breath, meditation, presence, it is not until we live them, day after day, that we feel their true power. Knowing the path is not the same as walking it. In consistent practice, the real transformation unfolds. Go into nature, breathe the open air, touch the soil, listen to the wind and the song of the birds. There are no algorithms there, no masks, only truth. And in that truth, something in us remembers. Nature deprograms us. It reorders our energy. It returns us to the original pulse of life. In these moments of quiet, of outer disconnection and inner reconnection, we can finally observe ourselves. We can ask, honestly, from where am I acting? From my essence, my higher self, or from a program of fear, hurt, or habit? This self-seeing is not always easy in the storm of daily life, but in the quiet spaces we create, we can weave the thread that connects us to the highest part of ourselves. And there, freedom begins, when we stop reacting and begin to create from spirit. And so, step by step, we reclaim what was taken, the sovereignty of our attention, the wholeness of our being, and the sacred energy that is our birthright. Thank you for journeying with me to the end. I hope this sharing has been of value and brought a little more light to your path. Until we meet again.